Hello and welcome back to the GorillaBiker. So today what we're going to be doing is changing the clutch on my 2007 Yamaha Phaser. This is applicable for most bikes of this type though, so if you have any interest in seeing how it works roughly, stay tuned. So what you'll need if you follow this exactly is 8 new clutch friction plates and 8 new metal plates, oil and an oil filter, as well as new clutch springs and a new clutch cover gasket. Also a 5mm Allen key and a 10mm socket or wrench and a good chunk of patience. I would recommend getting a torque wrench as well. I did actually have one, but it didn't work, as I'll explain later. Also, do not forget to soak your new clutch friction plates in oil for at least, a few hours before fitting them. I left them soaking for about 24 hours, which I would recommend. So first off, what you want to do is drain the oil. You don't have to do this, but I decided to get a service in at the same time, so why not do it? I also changed the oil filter at this point too. I use high flow oil filters as I change them at every service anyway, which I do every 5,000 kilometers or so. Once the oil is drained, I fitted a new filter and a new magnetic sun plug from ProBolt, which looks pretty. It was just a little treat to myself. And then you can forget about that side of the bike for now. Next, move around the bike and remove the clutch cover. Make sure you don't drop the dowels from this clutch cover into the engine. There are two, keep an eye out for them. Just small metal pins. All you'll need to remove this is the 5mm Allen and some patience. 10 bolts in total need to be removed the whole way around, plus one from the water pump here to allow access to move these cables and lines out of your way, as they will stop you fitting and removing the clutch cover. Also, there are 2 longer bolts in the cover, so note where they come from to go back to when you remove it. Okay, here, look, it's these 2. I'm being nice. I would also recommend removing the coolant line shown here, as I had to later anyway, just because I got kind of pissed off with it. Just be warned that you will have to refill the coolant if you do so. You don't have to do this, you can maneuver around it, so if you don't want to refill coolant or whatever else, don't bother. So start working your way around the clutch basket then, loosening off the bolts as shown. Don't lose these if you don't have new ones. I didn't, I forgot to order new bolts. And if you're reusing the springs, which you can do, also make sure not to lose any. I would recommend at minimum changing the springs. Honestly, they're not expensive and they're well worth changing. Remove your clutch basket cover and take out your plates one by one. Make sure you place them in the order you remove them so you can copy this when you're refitting your new plates. It's also helpful to see you missing anything. As I was missing one metal plate, so I just reused one that looked the most okay. You can also measure these for thickness and stuff, and you could have picked the best one that way. I just winged it. Refitting is easy, just place the new plates back in the same order as they came out as shown. Your friction plates should be nice and oily at this point. Installation is easy, just take your time and don't drop any. When placing the clutch basket cover thing back, there is actually a dot on the face of it that lines up with another dot on the basket itself. The cover will only sit flush at this orientation, so it's not a huge concern, but just again, take your time, line them up and get your cover sitting flush, otherwise it won't work. Once sitting flush, you can start replacing your springs and bolts all around as shown. Just make sure you tighten the bolts in a crisscross pattern as shown, so everything sits flush and you're not putting too much pressure on any one side at any point. Do not use a dugga gun here. Just by hand, tighten everything up nice and slow. The bolts should be torqued to 8 Newton meters, but my torque wrench didn't want to show that low, even though it was apparently calibrated for it, so thanks, Sealy. Once all bolts are fitted and torqued to spec, you can replace the cover. I would also recommend fitting a new gasket at this point. You can reuse your old gasket, but again, they're not mad money. So I went with the OEM metal gasket and bought a new one. Pro tip here, which I didn't do, is to remove the dowels from the cover if there's any stuck in the cover and put them in the clutch housing itself. This makes holding the gasket in place so much easier, and fitting the cover is just a lot easier. I ended up doing this in the end. Other points to note are the teeth on the clutch pin should be facing backwards towards the rear wheel, and the clutch cable actuator you'll need to hold out at about 90 degrees and then it'll roll into position correctly. There's 2 small dots on the actual actuator and cover itself that should line up. I did this wrong at least 10 times before I figured this out. This will just mean that if you don't line these up, you will not be able to tighten the clutch cable correctly, and it won't be right. You'll have to take it on and off again a few times, which is a pain, and you run the risk of damaging your gasket and everything else when you're doing that. So try to get it right the first time, which I didn't. Once the cover itself is sat correctly, keep a hand against it to stop it springing back out, and fit a bolt or two. Once done, have at it and fit the rest. Remember, there are 2 longer bolts here. The rest are mix and match. Just put the longer bolts in the right place. Again, tighten in a crisscross pattern around the cover and torque to 12 Newton meters. Sealy once again let me down here, so 12 Newton meters also didn't click. I tested this on a bolt on the bench. It just, thing wouldn't click low. So thank God for my calibrated pause. Then tighten up your clutch cable and test your drag and engaging point of the clutch, which is coming up. If you want to see how to fit and adjust the clutch cable, I've done this before. I'll leave a link in the description. And I nearly forgot, don't forget to fill back up your bike with oil, obviously. That would be bad if you didn't. Now, for the on-the-road test and checking for drag, etc. So how is the clutch? It's pretty good, I won't lie. It is. It's not night and day from the old one, but obviously you've seen one of the old clutch plates, and that was cooked. So you know it has helped there a lot. So the EBC plates, honestly, can't tell a huge pile of difference between them. Oh my lord! And the stock, I'd say they're pretty similar, you know, friction-wise overall. So yeah, like grab, there's definitely a bit more there. It's a little bit more responsive, but you know, my old clutch was slipping. So all in all, not a massive difference between the stock plates and the EBC plates. Now those EBC plates are supposed to be, you know, road use, so they should be very, very similar to OEM. The springs are the only thing that I'll go into, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we do a quick walk around up ahead. They were harder to install. They're very strong, and setting up the actual clutch itself afterwards, and I'll show you this when we're stopped. I can't show you while we're moving, but the actual setting up the clutch itself, it's a little bit harder, especially if you're not sure what you're doing. I also threw on a new clutch cable yesterday because I wanted an OEM one on there. I had a Slinky Glide, wasn't too impressed with it, so I put back on an OEM one. But all in all, yeah, very happy with how it's worked out. Obviously I made those few mistakes that I mentioned in the video, but the springs have made a big difference. They are heavy on the clutch, so if you're not mad on a heavy clutch, those heavy duty springs, yeah, they're maybe not for you, and they're tough to install. They're like, I was sweating pushing in to install them. So unless you have a tool which holds the springs in for you, maybe I wouldn't recommend it so much. But overall, I got 46,000 kilometers off the original clutch pack, which I'm really happy with. In fairness, I know I'm not particularly hard on clutches. I don't race my bike too often, as in races and go fast or whatever else. So I was relatively easy on it. I'd say a lot of the cooking of the clutch happened when I used to, you know, white line drag race Kev Cobb when he had his single cylinder and his new bike. But yeah, definitely, if it's something that you feel your clutch is slipping a bit, I would say just do the whole thing, because it's made a massive difference. I'm really happy with it. Fucking hell, lad. That's why you have to be careful all the time and not panic. What a goober. So, what I was talking about, and I don't recommend doing this, by the way, even if you have a center stand, I still don't recommend it. How to check your clutch drag. If you have it in first and the clutch in, your wheel should not move, and you should be able to spin it backwards like that. Obviously, clutch out, spins up normally, clutch in, it should stop with a very light touch, like so. Do not put your foot on your wheel. I'm an idiot. Don't do as I do, okay? Do as I say. Don't do that. I suppose I should probably tell you how to check your clutch drag if you don't want to do stupid things and put it up on its center stand like I did. Easiest way is if you roll your bike back in neutral like that, right? Pop it into first, hold the clutch in, do the same thing. It should feel the same. If you're feeling any resistance there with your clutch in, it means that there's something hanging on. Oh, I'm so bad at words. It means your clutch isn't engaging fully or disengaging the gearbox fully, which means that you have clutch drag, so you need to adjust it. Very simple to adjust. You can use the cable up the top, or you can use your adjuster on the phaser that's in under the tank. So I would recommend adjusting the one under the tank before you ever adjust the one up here. I have this adjusted nicely so that I can have lots of space on this adjuster down here. That is how you check your clutch drag. So if you have it in first gear and you clutch in and the wheel is still spinning, it just means that your clutch isn't engaging fully. And the thing about this new heavier clutch is it actually felt like it was engaging, but wasn't. So that's one thing to be aware of with the heavier clutch springs as well, is your clutch does feel different. It's lovely and smooth, but it's still a bit heavy. Now I'm going to grease up the cable and stuff, and hopefully that helps a bit too. Overall though, I am really happy with how it came out. It would have been easy to do if I wasn't an idiot. Like I explained earlier, made a few mistakes with this boy, but overall pretty okay. The cooling thing is a bit of a pain in the ass too, but hey, still, you do once every 50,000 kilometers, not so bad. So other than that, yeah, if you have any questions on the clutch change or adjusting the clutch, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to help. And if you want the part numbers that I used, I can probably get them for you, but they're just the standard ones. Obviously I've already given you the plates and stuff, and steel plates were standard. Yeah, so that's it really. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you've watched, thank you very much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe, and if you're feeling really generous, maybe share it. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. Adios. Outro crew. Let's do a wee pull on the new clutch, shall we? And the question for the outro crew is, isn't it class? That was fun. Bye, outro crew.